Hi, my name is Joe. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you first kind of a quick tip with how to set up a note latch on the Akai Force. And this is something that I always wished that this machine would do. And I just figured out how to do it. So I'm going to show you that. That's kind of a quick tip. It's got some useful applications. And I'm actually going to show you the one that kind of drove me to figure this out, which is some phased loops. So we'll talk about that after I show you the quick tip. Let's dive right in. So we've got TubeSynth here, and you can see that if I press a note and I let it go, it just dies off. There's really nothing I can do to latch that note into place. So let's set up a note latch. The first thing I'm going to do is add a new MIDI track here. And I'm going to go into the properties for this MIDI track, and we're going to tell it to send MIDI to plugin 1, which is where I have TubeSynth set up. Now, we're actually not going to be sending like MIDI notes from here. We're just going to be sending a control signal. So the next thing I want to do is come into my edit knobs, and I'm going to come up and select the project knobs. I'll just set this up on project 2, and we'll select this knob, and I'm going to add a parameter, track, MIDI 1, edit, and I'm just going to scroll like way down here and find CC64, which is sustain on and off. And I'll come into the properties for this and just switch it to a toggle. And you can see now that when I touch this button, the sustain goes on, and when I touch it again, the sustain goes off. So if I come back to track 2, or track 1, which is TubeSynth, and I play a note, and I touch that sustain button, it just stays on. I could go on vacation now and come back in a week, and this thing should, as long as there's no power disruptions, still be playing. And I just touch it again to turn it off. I can do this with chords. And I can even like add notes in as I want to. So what actually drove me to figure this out, I was watching this loopop video from a couple of years ago about phasing loops. And this isn't the first I've heard of it, but I'd never really tried it. And I was watching Loopop demonstrate this on a Digitact, and I thought, oh great, now I've got to buy a Digitact. And then I thought, wait, no, my Akai Force should be able to do this, right? And of course it can. And I'm going to show you how to do that. This technique, this phasing loops, I guess was pioneered by a gentleman named Steve Reich back in the 60s. So if you want some inspiration around this, go on your favorite streaming service and check out some of his recordings. He's got a lot of examples doing it with all kinds of crazy things, vocals and whatnot. But back in the 60s, Steve Reich would have had to do this with like tapes, reel-to-reel tapes, and splicing tapes with scissors and fun things like that. So we're going to have a lot more convenience here doing it on the Force. So let me show you what I'm talking about and the effect that this creates. All right, so if we go into sample edit here, I've already got a sample that I set up for this. It's just called EP Electric Piano ARP. It sounds like this. I've just got it looped. You can hear it's just like an electric piano doing some arpeggiation. And so what we're essentially going to do is make a copy of this. We'll take 2 copies of this, and we're going to knock them slightly out of phase by trimming the endpoint of one of them off and playing it at the same time. So the first loop will play all the way through, and the second loop is essentially going to be just a little bit shorter, so it's going to reset faster. And as it plays and it loops over and over again, each one's going to become slightly out of phase with each other, causing these different little rhythms and things in there. It's pretty interesting. So to set this up, I'm just going to create a new track. And we'll make a drum track, and I'll just come in and edit this first pad, and I'm going to assign that sample the EP ARP. And we'll just do a little bit of setup here. If I go back over to the global tab, I want to switch this from one shot to note on. That is what is going to allow me to actually loop this thing. And if we come back over to the samples tab, I will set this to loop forward. And so now if I play this pad, it sounds like this. Just like we'd expect it to. It's looping. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this pad. So I'll just copy this pad from here to here. And now we've got 2 copies of it. The other thing I need to do with these pads, I guess I forgot this. We'll come back over to the first one, and we're just going to set this slice to pad. And we'll do that on the second pad as well. The reason is if I don't set this to pad, like the settings of one are going to follow the other. I won't be able to set up independent loop points on each of these pads. All right, so for the second one, I'll put my knobs into screen mode here, and I'm just gonna slightly adjust the end of this thing. I might use like the X100 coder and just set the endpoint of this one to be just a little bit different. And the last thing I'm gonna do is come over here to the global tab, and we have the simultaneous play, and make sure I'm on pad 1 here. And we're just going to set this to also play pad A02. So now when I hit pad A1, at the exact same time, it's also going to play pad 2. And I think if I've got everything right here, this is actually all we need to do. So let's go ahead and change that MIDI track. Come over here to the matrix, and rather than sending this over to TubeSynth, let's now send this to our drum track. I can put my knobs back into Project 2 mode, so I have my button here. And let's try it out. And as you listen to this, it's just kind of cool. The rhythms just kind of shift all over the place. Take a listen. I've actually just started to play with this myself, so there's a lot of things you could potentially do here. I mean, there's no rule saying that you have to use the same sample. And I mean, obviously we've got, a ton of things that we could do with this inside the Force now that we have this set up. We could add different effects on each one. I've been playing around with like I think it's in here, the air pitch shifter, and shifting the pitch of just one of them to like an octave down. And also checking out like the error half time is in here, the error half speed. That one's pretty interesting with this. So it's pretty wild. Like I said, check out some of Steve Reich's recordings if you want to hear some more inspiration and examples of this. And also check out Loopop's video because he did some pretty neat stuff there that I don't really feel like I need to repeat. I'll link that in the description for you as well. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. And if you get some cool stuff out of it, I mean, definitely let me know about it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have been able to do with this. Until next time, take care.